Good evening. This is Tim Carter, Superintendent of Wilson Central School District, with our evening edition of the Parent Reopening Forum. And the purpose of this forum is to give parents an opportunity to hear what the reopening plan is, and then just ask questions and things like that. We're going to get started formally in about 3 minutes on my computer timer. I will start at 6:02. And then we'll I'll take the first few minutes and sort of explain an overview of the plan. And then you guys, as parents, you can go ahead and ask questions, and I'll tell you how you do that in a moment. It's 6 o'clock right now. I'm going to begin at 6:02. If you're just joining us at 6 o'clock, we're going to give it 2 minutes. That seems to be the magic number when most people join on, usually between the time it's the start and a minute after. So we'll give everybody a chance to log on, and then I'll get started. Lost it. I'm going to get started now. Good evening. It is 6:02 on Monday, August 17th, and this is the Wilson Central School District Reopening Parent Forum. This parent forum is the evening forum. It is for any parent in elementary, middle, and high school. This is the 6th parent forum that we've done. We're in the process of completing, we will be completing 4 more for a total of 9, 3 for each individual building, and 1, which is tonight, for the entire district, to have a chance to ask questions. So welcome. Rules of engagement. Unfortunately, this is the best forum that we have found for doing these reopening town hall meetings or forums. You have the ability to ask any question you want about any part of the plan. I'm going to take a few minutes and get started, but as soon as the questions start popping up, I'll stop and go through them. In my office with me is Jen Pavan, our district clerk, and our district technology facilitator, Bonnie Simpson, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. As they start popping up, Jen will let me know, and I'll stop and read the questions, and then give a chance to best possible answer. At any point after this meeting, if you continue to have questions or if there's any issues arising, please call that district number 751-9399. Mrs. Pavan at the end will put that number out on the chat line for everyone to have. A couple assumptions that I have. One is that you read the plan itself. If you didn't read that plan, my hope is you saw Friday we took the learning plan out of the document and created a separate document for that, hopefully a little less pages to read. So that's one of the assumptions. I'm also making the assumption that you haven't joined one of the other meetings. You're more than welcome to. You can hear this as many times as you like, but I'm going to go through pretty much the same beginning and stop in whatever spots I need to take questions. So I'll start with the overall goal. The overall goal for the district is for the school, the community, parents, students, staff, teachers to work together so our school can open in as normal fashion as possible. That being said, we each have roles and responsibilities to get done. The district's going to make sure that we get as much as possible done on our end, but there are some things the students are going to need to do and the parents are going to have to ensure that the students do in order for this reopening plan to happen. So let me start with cleaning and sanitizing. It's one of the first parts of the plan. So Mr. Harmon, our district director of facilities, has created a plan for sanitizing each of the buildings on an evening and an every night basis. And with the middle school and high school, because we're going to a hybrid model, we also have a deep cleaning in between the two cohorts. So the guidelines call for sanitizing every single night and making sure all high touch surfaces are taken care of. Excuse me. But in the if you're changing classes out, so in the elementary school, there's one classroom, one set of kids in the classroom. In the middle school, high school, because we're going to the cohort A and cohort B, we have to do that deep cleaning in between two groups of students coming in. So that's part of the cleaning and sanitizing. Mr. Harmon has taken each section of each building, along with the custodians at the elementary school, Mr. Clare, and at the high school, Mr. DeGee, and middle school, and they have broken down each section of those buildings into cleaning and sanitizing areas. Custodians and cleaners are going to be asked to make sure that each building each night is cleaned and sanitized according to CDC guidelines. And not only will they clean, but have they been trained to clean, and they continue to be trained to clean and sanitize. There's a sign off to ensure that they have that evening taking care of that area. Two reasons. One, it's a form of accountability. And number two, we're doing that because if at any time the Department of Health or State Ed comes in and says, how can you tell us that this section or this area was sanitized? We have the documentation to show them that we are doing our part, the cleaning and sanitizing. So that's the first section. Hopefully that was understandable. And if not, please ask any questions you want throughout this. So the second part of the plan is the health and safety aspect. And it begins with a health screen. So we will be asking parents and students to participate in a daily health screen prior to coming to school. So this health screen will be located on the district website according to grade level and the teacher that the child has. So at the middle school and high school, it'll be their homeroom teacher, and at the elementary school, it'll be their classroom teacher. So it will be broken down by grade level and then by the teacher. And then when you click on the teacher, a COVID screen would come up, and you have to answer all those COVID-related questions similar to what you would ask if you're for your employer or if you're going into a doctor's office and things like that. That is required by the district every single night or every single morning when the child gets up. Parent can do the screen. If the child is old enough, the child can do the screen. Has the ability to do the screen. The screen is by teacher on the website because then the teacher has access to that spreadsheet the next morning or that morning when they take attendance. So they're going to take attendance, look around, make sure that the kids are here, took the screen. If they took the screen, excuse me, if they took the screen, they can stay. If they didn't take the screen, they're going to be sent down to the nurse, and the nurse will do the temperature check and all the screening and it's just going to add more time to the child's day and more time out of the movement and more time out of the child for the instructional morning. So we're asking parents, as your part, we need to make sure we get that screen done. That is required in order to come to school that morning. We did, just sort of debate and talk about, the temperature check, which you've been seeing in many places you're going into. But the temperature check, one of the issues with that is a good number of people aren't even affected by a fever. So therefore, the effectiveness of using the fever to be a deterrent for COVID-19 is not necessarily. It's a combination of all those different factors. So some people may not even exhibit a fever, but they're going to have some of those other factors. That's why it's important that every single day you take a temperature, you do the screen, and you follow those different symptoms. And if you mark yes for any of those symptoms, you cannot be in school today. So if you're symptomatic, you cannot be in school that day. If you're in school and throughout the day, whether it be student or staff have to take the same screen, and it's the same with staff. If they check yes to any of those symptoms, they'll be out of school that day also. So if you're in school and at any point in time in the day you go from a no to a yes, so you go to lunch, you start not feeling well, you have symptoms, sent down to the nurse is going to isolate that student in one of our isolation rooms, and a parent's going to be called and asked to come get them, and the student is going to have to be picked up to go home. Now, with all of these cases, whether you say yes in the morning to the symptoms of COVID, not for everything that your child may have. If you have symptoms of COVID, you'll need to go take your child to a healthcare provider. That's what the Department of Health is requiring. They have to go to a healthcare provider, both students and staff, and get a note released back to school. Now, again, I've said this through all the different programs. Those guidelines are changing as we get closer and closer to school, just like most guidelines are changing. Some have loosened up, some are getting more strict. Some are staying the same. So right now, as we speak on 6/12 on August 17th, this is what the Department of Health flyer looks like. And I'm holding on to this till we get closer to school, and then I'll send it out. But right now, is if your student or staff is symptomatic, fever, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, muscle, body ache, headache, loss of smell, taste, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. If you're exhibiting any of those symptoms, you are not allowed to be in school that day. Or if you, during the day, end up with those symptoms, you're going to be isolated and sent home. And what the first drop down says, what schools are to do is isolate and send home if it occurs during the day, and then the student and staff will be asked to seek medical attention and must provide a note and a negative COVID-19 test before returning. And I know that "and" is a very controversial thing right now. There's talk because the CDC is not requiring both. They're only saying do the note or a COVID test. I can see that being changed. In fact, I'm expecting at some point next week we'll have a change to that guidance. But I don't believe we're going to have a change to the guidance that says they have to go see the doctor. So if you exhibit one of those symptoms, you need to go see a medical provider. And I know that there's tons of issues with that. Where can you get your child in right away? There's a cost associated with this. And unfortunately, with all of this reopen, there's a cost associated with everything that we're doing. So that guidance, like I said, for when a child or a staff member returns symptomatic or asymptomatic, is going to continue to be a moving target as we get closer to school. So I'm thoroughly expecting as we get closer that I have to do like one of those final updates. Here's everything I can tell you what's going on with school and the reopening and guidance. So that's the student health screen and also the health and safety part of when your child is sick. There's other health and safety guidelines So when your student is coming to school, we will use the normal entrances coming into school. But once the students are in, both at the high school and the middle school, and the high school, middle school, and elementary, once all the students are in, doors get shut and they get locked. And there's only one way in for each building. It's the middle school front secure entrance, the high school front secure entrance, and the middle school front secure entrance. So each building has their own entrance. There's a vestibule where parents can wait in between while the students are either being brought down or being put into school. We're not going to have any kids moving past or any parents moving past the front vestibule, at least for the foreseeable future, until we know this COVID crisis is winding down and guidelines start to loosen up. If we allow parents to go past, we're exposing the kids that are in the building to another person. And then the opposite is true. That parent is now part of the contact trace. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, what we have to do with contact tracing and things like that in our health and safety. So that's the front vestibule. All deliveries will be either contactless, or we'll ensure that the drivers, delivery people, before they come into school, have taken their COVID test. Now, we do have some contractors. We have delivery people. We have companies we work with that we know, because they've given us their COVID plan, we know that they test every morning and they won't send that driver out unless they pass that COVID test. So they will be allowed in the building. But anyone we don't know, it'll be contactless delivery. Materials will be left outside. When the person leaves, our people will go out and get the material and bring it into the school. So that's the entry to the facility and all the things that relates to deliveries. Healthy hygiene practices. So there are certain hand hygiene practices, wearing of masks, respiratory practices that we have to not only train our teachers on, but we have to turnkey train that and give them video material and all sorts of material and signage on what the kids are going to need to do. So that being said, I'm going to take a second and talk about the opening of school. We've changed the schedule a little bit, and that change is on the website. So on the website, there's a student calendar, and the student calendar looks something like this at the beginning of the year. You don't have to write this down. Again, it's on the student calendar. So the old calendar had September 2nd as a superintendent's conference day. We've added in Tuesday, September 8th, and Wednesday, September 9th as a superintendent's conference day. That'll allow us to ensure that we are training the staff not only on the COVID health hygiene pieces, but also giving them the material to be able to work with the kids when they come in. And then on those days, we're also going to be working with the technology programs, both the hardware and the software, in order to ensure that this remote option is going to work as seamless as possible. And when I say seamless as possible, we're all going to have to be flexible. Technology is only as good as when technology is working, and nobody knows what's going to happen when all these schools open up and at 9 o'clock and all these kids are on. We don't know. Nobody's going to know throughout the entire state. And we're going to have to see and be flexible and make sure that we are continually monitoring the situation when it comes to looking at what options we have. So going back to the training, and on the opening, so the 2nd, the 8th, and the 9th are going to be superintendent conference days. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing, and that's why I say go to the calendar, but I've been explaining it enough. Hopefully people are catching it. Thursday and Friday of that week, depending on what building you're in, it's going to be a little bit different. If you're an elementary parent and you're watching, the first day for elementary is Thursday the 10th, and they'll also return Friday the 11th. That's only for the students that are in person. The distance learning kids have a different start date. I'm going to get to that. So in-person students are going to be in the elementary are going to be in person on the 10th and the 11th, and they're going to be working. Teachers are going to be working with them in two modes. One, the hygiene, three modes actually: the hygiene and the sanitizing what proper hand washing looks like, proper way to wear your mask, when you have to wear your mask. We're going to practice that over and over again. Movement around the building and how we're going to be moving around the building, single file, 6 feet apart, making sure that's all ingrained in them and they understand that that's what the expectation is. But it's also to help the students begin that process of understanding what is it going to look like in this remote world and how you can operate in this remote world. And it's important that we work with our kids that are in school, along with our kids that are not in school, that are distance learning, into what it's going to look like and how we can operate in this remote world. Because at any time, through illness, symptomatic, could be a number of issues. The Department of Health says your building's closed. Whatever that happens, at any moment's notice, we may be back in the remote world for a period of time. So that being said, we need to take some time and we need to practice with our elementary kids on that Thursday and Friday on working through that remote world. For middle school and high school, for the first week of school, that Thursday, it's going to be a day for A cohort. That's kids in letters A through L. And on Friday, kids in the B cohort, letters M through Z, will be in school that day. Same thing, high-end hygiene, respiratory hygiene, mask wearing, social distancing, going through the routine of the building. Also working on how do you go remote, because for the next week, you're going to be go remote for 3 out of the 5 days. So that's what the 10th and the 11th, 10th for A cohort, 11th for B cohort. And that gets to the distance learning kids with their first day of school is Monday the 14th, along with everybody else. Monday the 14th, elementary is in full, except for the kids that are distance learning. And in the middle school, AA remote day BB starts that week on the Monday and Tuesday, the 14th and 15th. A cohort are in. Wednesday, everybody's out. And then Thursday and Friday, the B cohort is in. So that begins that following week on the 14th. So we have a couple days to get everybody up to speed. So on that Thursday and Friday, when A cohort is in, B cohort is home, they don't have to remote in, and the distance learning kids do not have to remote in on that first day for A cohort. The following day, the 11th, B cohort is in school, A cohort is staying home, and the same thing, anybody who's home doesn't have to remote in. When we start on Monday the 14th, A cohort is in school, B cohort is remoting in, and C cohort is here every day. That's our 1201 classes, 1201 class, and the distance learning people are remoting in. So that's our middle school, high school hybrid first opening of school. All right, so that's the opening days of school. And I know it's confusing. Before I get too far into this, just for those of you that may be high school parents, BOCES, our vocational ed program, BOCES, right now is planning on going 5 days. We're going to get into that a little bit as we go on, and there are some transportation issues. But I do want to tell you that they have 2 scheduled days for their reopening session. They're having 3 sessions over 2 days, and one of them is tonight at 7 o'clock. So if you've been on with me before and you have a fairly good understanding and you want to switch over to that 7 o'clock meeting, you're more than welcome to do that. Or tomorrow, the 18th, there's 2 sessions. There's one at 3 o'clock, and they're guessing it's going to go from 3 to 5. And then they're going to have another one at 7 o'clock for 2 hours. So there's their 3 sessions. Dr. Gotcha wanted me to announce that, but it is also on their website. Their links are on their website. Okay. I'll get through. There's a whole section here on BOCES, and I'll get to that. So that's health and safety and the opening of school. We do have our signs up for social distancing, and I'll get to how we can open in this section. So there's 2 separate opening plans, one for the elementary school and one for the middle high school. The social distancing for the elementary school, it can be done by using these plastic partitions. I know that they're polycarbon partitions. Mr. Diodati sent through Class at Dojo what they look like. if you have, you want to take a look at them, please call that number 751-9399, and we can make sure we get a picture to you if you don't have Class Dojo, or if you want to sign up for the elementary updates with Mr. Diodati, you can do that. But like I said, he's sent out pictures of what these things look like. They're plastic, clear plastic dividers. There's no top on them. There's two sides and a front. I know I originally said a top because the one I saw had a top on it, but these ones do not. But they're 22 inches tall, so they're way over the top of the student's head. They are affixed to the table. We can social distance about 3 feet in between each kid. And when a student is sitting forward doing their work like I am, and I'm doing that natural lean while I'm writing or I'm typing on a computer, the child can take a mask break. They can take their mask off, put it at their desk, and they can do their work. When they sit back or when they stand up, they're going to have to put their mask back on. And one of the things that elementary parents can help with is doing that practice of taking on and taking off the mask, especially in the kindergarten, first and second grade. That's the most important, that they know how to take on and put on a mask. We're asking parents that if you have masks, a mask at home, you should send your child with a mask. We'll have some here if there is a need for anyone to have a mask. We will provide one for them. We've ordered enough masks and hand sanitizers to last us a good long time. Social distancing also is the 6 feet in the hallway. So when they're traveling in the hallways, they need to put their mask on, moving around 6 feet apart. When they're standing in the line for cafeteria, they need to stay 6 feet apart. Our elementary kids are going to eat in the cafeteria for a number of reasons, but one of them is the fact that the guidelines say even if you're using barriers to eat, I don't know why, but it says even if you're using barriers to eat, you have to maintain that 6 foot. We don't have the room in the classroom to take half of them out, put them in the cafeteria, plus monitor what's going on in the classroom. So we're going to use the cafeteria along with another location that we're working on to be able to make sure that our kids are socially distanced 6 feet, can take their masks off, eat without any worries. As long as they're sitting, their mask can be off. As soon as they stand up, their masks have to go off. So that's the how social distancing at the elementary school is. We're using these plastic polycarbonate barriers to allow for mask breaks. In the middle school and high school, we can't use the polycarbonate barriers because they are not made to be moved around. I know some districts are. I know one district in particular is using the one that's meant to move around, but our medical director has clearly indicated that you can't expose these plastic polycarbonate to other people. In other words, there can't be going from class to class to class. They have to be sanitized in between, and our kids would spend more time sanitizing than they would be walking around. So at the middle school and high school, we explored every option right now, and we're going to continue to explore options on how we can continue to bring back more and more kids back to the middle school and high school. But at least to begin, for the month of September, we're going to start in that hybrid model, which I've explained, and it's also on the district website, the AA Remote Day BB. So that's the social distancing. We have signage all over the building, along with limiting the amount of people going to the bathrooms, limiting people that are out in the halls in between classes, to make sure that that social distancing can happen. In our cafeteria at the middle school and high school, which is probably the bigger area of concern because of the size of it, so our number that we can put in there is smaller. We will be using other rooms to, after the student gets their lunch, they're going to have to go to a room and sit with supervision and eat their lunch there. We cannot fit everybody in the middle school and high school cafeteria for each lunch period, even with only half the students in. To do that 6 feet, you get very limited number of kids that can be in the cafeteria. Okay, in the line, when they're going through the line, whether it be the high school or middle school, there'll be some kind of social distancing circle where kids can place their tray or where their feet will be standing in order to move down the line and stay 6 feet and have 6 feet of separation. There's all sorts of rules and regulations for office areas, things like that. Our nurses station, our nurses pretty much have to operate like they're in a doctor's office with gowns and PPE and masks and visors and gloves throughout the day. We have to have a separate isolation area. Both of our clinics have isolation rooms that allow us to have students in there and not be subject to other students that may not have those symptoms of COVID. We have air scrubbers that are going to be in those isolation rooms. They have been purchased. They're on their way. Those air scrubbers will be used while students are in there, so we know that the particles do not travel outside of that room. So those are the overall social distancing and isolation room conversations that we are talking about. We've talked a little bit about PPE. Each student is going to be required to wear a mask when standing, elementary when sitting back and standing, high school, middle school when standing. There's times when a teacher may ask a student to put their mask on because they need to move to take a question. Remember, the mask taking off is part of our mask break plan. So we are planning on having kids at the high school and middle school, when they're sitting in their desks, be able to take their masks off. But there are going to be times when the instruction is going on, the teacher's going to ask the kids to put their mask on because the teacher needs to get up, walk around, check for understanding. And if the teacher's up moving around, the kids are going to have to put their mask on for a short period of time until that ends. So the teachers will direct when mask breaks are over and things like that. I think I got everything with cleaning and disinfecting to begin. Okay, I'm going to go down to the next one, which is your child's taken the health screen. Again, if you have any questions about anything I talked about so far, down at the bottom of your page, there's a little square that says say something. You just put your cursor down there and type out your question, hit the little triangle to the right of it, and that question will pop up on our screen, and we'll answer it the best we can. If you're only sitting and listening, that's fine, but you can either ask questions at the end or throughout this program. For transportation, we had asked parents to indicate whether they'd be willing to drive or not drive their student to school, or they needed district transportation. That was in a survey that was given out earlier in the summer. During this, we had quite a few parents take it, which we certainly appreciated. We had about 50% of the districts indicate that they'd be willing to drive their students. Unfortunately, we haven't seen 50% of the district commit to driving their students. It's a lot less, which means we are going to have kids on the bus, and we will social distance as much as possible. In our plan that we sent into state ed, we have a pretty aggressive plan of having students on the bus as social distance as possible, loading the bus from back to front. So at each stop, we're going to load the bus from back to front. Kids will have a seating chart based upon in the route where they get picked up. When the bus gets to the high school, middle school, or the elementary school, they will be unloaded from front to back. So therefore, no students will be crossing paths. That's what was important with our plan, is we don't have any kids facing each other. All the students will be facing straight, and we're walking out. We're going to do this as best as possible, make sure we have social distancing, releasing kids in small, spaced out section. It's not going to be everybody standing it off the bus. It's this row, this row, this row, this row, this row, this row. As the bus comes, as people enter, we're not going to unload all of the buses at once. So yes, the unloading of students is going to be a little bit slower. So that's how transportation is going to occur. We are going to have transportation for our BOCES students, but that transportation is going to be to and from school. So if you're an AM BOCES person, you can bring yourself in by bus and then take the AM BOCES bus to school, but then that BOCES bus will come back to school, and you're going to have to find your way back home from school. BOCES is going to allow a certain number of kids to drive. It's not a huge number. They said they can handle from each district 16 seniors and 16 juniors. We'll kind of work on that as the next couple of weeks go on. We're going to how, depending on how many people say they want their child to drive. If it's less than 16, we're in good shape. If it's more than 16, we'll have to have some kind of a lottery system for that. Allow students to drive themselves. And of course, the parent has to be okay with the driving to school, and the school has to be okay with that child driving to BOCES. So that's the transportation to BOCES. Right now, BOCES is planning on going in 5 days. They do not have a remote model or a distance learning model. That's what I've been told. You may hear something different. I'm planning on to attend one of those 3 sessions just to listen to what the BOCES is planning, but we're told that they're going in 5 days, which means on your remote days, your child's going to have to go to BOCES. Now, what that looks like, we're still working on it when it comes to kids coming back and forth. We're asking parents to assist if they can by getting their kid to BOCES and back on remote days. If not, getting them to school so the bus can take them back and forth to BOCES. That's sort of the options we have right now. Again, it's August 17th. It's getting close to school, but there's still more time to think out and figure out what we can do and what we can handle. So that's what BOCES plan is right now, and what we're forced to do because of that plan in regards to distance learning plan. Okay, next section is our continuity of learning, which is teaching and learning. So for elementary, it's the majority of our students are in. We do have some parents that have chosen the distance learning model, and I'll talk about what that's going to look like as part of high school. So our students at the middle school and high school are going to be in hybrid to begin the year, which means it's going to be based on cohort to reduce the number of kids that are in school. Some kids are going to be in person, and some kids are going to be in remote or distance learning. So how this is going to work. Again, a lot of this is theoretical, and we're going to be working on it between now and the first time we're doing this. So if your child is in school, obviously he's going to have an in-person experience. That in-person experience is also going to be very technologically heavy. They're just going to have a little more support when it comes to working on that technology and things like that. And when your child is home, especially with the little ones, whoever is with them is going to have to help them, log on, get where they need to be. I have the same concerns that every parent has about too much screen time and things like that. I understand. I just don't have a majorly good option other than the fact that if you're going to choose distance learning, you've got to understand there's going to be screen time involved. Both elementary, middle, and high school, you're going to be a mix of synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning means that your child is going to log in when the class is actually happening. So the elementary has created chunks of time when each teacher is doing certain work, and you're going to get an invite probably once a day, and with the time frame of when your child should be logged in, and we will do attendance based upon a child logging in to those times. So there's going to be some synchronous at the elementary school. Asynchronous is also going to occur, which means your child is not logged in on that particular day. They're given an assignment to do. I've asked all the teachers that if they're going to create an assignment and for asynchronous, they need to somehow have a video directions, what it's going to look like, what for the kids to complete this. So if it's a primary kid, the adult that's with the child can help understand that, look at the directions once or twice. Older students, intermediate students in the elementary and then middle school, high school, the child has a chance to go back and look at those directions. There's going to be both videos of the teacher and also videos of YouTube videos of content that the child's going to be able to have access to. So that's the in-person, both asynchronous and synchronous learning portion of this. Again, if there's any questions about the plan, please don't hesitate to put that question in the chat box. And if there are no questions, I'm going to keep going. Food service. Talk a little bit about the cafeteria. So the cafeteria, we're going to be using the elementary and middle and high school cafeteria. We're also going to be using some alternate locations in order to feed our students. In the lines, they're going to be socially distanced. All of the food that they're going to be given is going to be handed to them in a tray or in a box, because we don't want the students reaching in and touching anything. So the food service person will be in appropriate PPE, putting their lunch together, handing the lunch to the child, and then the child moving down the line. Both elementary, middle, and high school, in their lunch lines, they'll have marks for socially distant standing, or on the actual serving line themselves, they'll have little circles and marks for where the child needs to stand in order to socially distance as they're moving down the food line. When they get into the cafeteria, again, all this is done with masks on. When they get into the cafeteria, very similar to the restaurants. When they sit down, they can take their mask off, eat. When they're all done, put their mask back on, line up, throw their stuff out, line up to go back to their classroom. So we're not only providing food service in the buildings when the kids are here, we're also on the remote day. So if you're at home, either on a day your cohort's not in school, or if you're a full distance learning student, you are able to get food. We'll have a reservation line attached to our website as we get closer to school. An email will go out giving people links to that. And that reservation line will give you the opportunity to reserve food. Now, the difference is with this one is the kids are going to be paying what they would pay if they were in school, reduced, free, or full price. And then also, it's important to know that you have to come get the food. We don't have the ability, nor are we required to deliver the food to locations in the community or to the houses. Food will be in a certain location. There'll be one spot at the high school, middle school, where all food pickups can be taken care of and done in a socially distanced and, more importantly, touch-free manner. So that's the food service. Moving into technology. We've done quite a bit in technology over the last few weeks. We have ordered Chromebooks for all students. Our kids in 6 through 12 have already had the opportunity to pick up their Chromebooks. All the Chromebooks are touchscreen in 6 through 12. The Chromebooks at the elementary and middle school are ordered, at the elementary school are ordered. We believe that we're crossing our fingers that all of them are going to be here at the beginning of the school. We have enough to give to the distance learning kids that are planning on not being in school. We will do that delivery in the next couple of days, or in the next week or so. There's a delivery that you'll get notified. So that'll be the distance learning kids for the elementary. The rest of the kids, it'll be later before school starts or right after school starts. They'll get their piece of technology. We do not have touch screens for all the elementary to start the year. The order for the touch screens was delayed because the manufacturer didn't have them. All districts are doing the same thing. They're ordering touchscreen Chromebooks. So the orders were delayed even though they've been in. We're expecting them late September, early October. As soon as we have them, we will distribute them to the students that do not have touch screens now. So we're very hopeful that close to the beginning of the school year, we're going to have Chromebooks for everyone. But our 4th and 5th graders may not have the touchscreen ones to begin the year. They'll still have keyboards to be able to work with. Our 4th and 5th graders are actually, because the elementary school made a commitment 3 or 4 years ago to full one-to-one computing, our 4th and 5th graders have been doing this technology for a few years. So they're probably, along with our 6th graders that are going up, they're probably I know they're pretty adept. I've seen them working on these Chromebooks. So I'm expecting that, while having a touchscreen is certainly a benefit, especially with some of our programs, shortly into the school year, we're expecting to get that shipment, and then we'll swap out the non-touch screens for the touchscreen Chromebooks, and then those ones that are non-touchscreen will be backups, because as the year goes on and kids start breaking things or buttons start falling off on accident, we're going to have something to swap it out in order to fix the one that they're using and give it back, hopefully physical. We're working on carry cases for all of the Chromebooks. Our middle school and high schools went out with carrying cases. We're working on the rest of the district, and hopefully we'll have them at the beginning of school. A lot of these are not guarantees because we're at the mercy of the vendor, just like you guys are with anything you order from Amazon. You're at the mercy of whether or not the vendor has them and has the ability to ship them and get them in. Many factories across the United States are in half mode. So, we're doing our best to get stuff in. When we have it, it'll be in the kids' hands very shortly thereafter. We have a number of families. We know this by the same survey that we sent out, that we have a number of families that don't have internet. So we have purchased a number of hotspots. Those hotspots will be done by the basis of who doesn't have internet, both staff and students. We have a couple staff members, and we have a handful of students that do not have internet. So if you do not have internet, or you don't have the ability to get internet, you're hopefully close to a cell tower. And if you're close to a cell tower, these hotspots will work. If you're not, we have to go to Plan Z, which is either you need to have a conversation about coming into school for an in-person, at least in the elementary, or we're going to have to make sure that we have a swap of some paper material too. So we'll have them identified by the time school starts. It's a small number of kids that don't have access to cell towers or access to internet. And we're working through that as we speak. With athletics, I'm going to stop and ask a question. Did you have a chance the chat function not working?
I believe so, but we can test it.
Yeah. Put that number on the 751 number. Just double checking, because usually by now I've had a few questions. So either I'm getting pretty good at answering the questions before you get them, or this group's heard me say this before. So I left off with technology. So we have hotspots available. We have Chromebooks available. We have a computer program that it's a software program that's going to overlay with, it didn't come up on mine, it's probably, we have a computer software program that, there it is, but it just came up. So if you have any questions, you can either type them right into that screen or call that 751 number 9399. So we have a computer program called, happens to be named Kami, K-A-M-I. There's numerous videos out there to take a look at how it operates. But a lot of teachers' material is in text form, so it's a piece of paper. And this program works in concert with Google Classroom to allow a teacher to put their paper version or whatever they want the kids to work on into this program, send it out over Google Classroom, and then the student has the ability to handwrite over it, or with the touch screen using a stylus, or also type on it, highlight using all the key functions that are on the keypad. So that allows them to also, the teachers, to attach a video clip to this program explaining it, and also gives the kids a chance to return it back to the teacher, and the teacher can use the same program in order to mark and assess that particular document. Let's see, from there I'll go to, I talked about BOCES. Unless somebody has a question about BOCES, I'll continue on. Okay, go ahead. There's one question.
Trying to find out when schedules will go out for the high school kids.
Great question. I know they're busy working on them. I'm going to be honest, it has a lot to do with a number of things, some changes at the high school, middle school, but more importantly, we're needing to get everybody into these cohorts and then divide those cohorts up, make sure that we have under the number of kids that we can in a classroom, and that's not a quick process. We're hoping by this week we'll have a good handle on that, in which the following week we can start calling people, because I have families that have not responded to any of the surveys or Google Forms we put out. So we get them into cohorts, We start calling them to find out, okay, you didn't tell us what you want to do with transportation. You didn't say whether or not you wanted distance learning or not, because that'll change your cohort from an A, B to a D cohort. So a lot of that that's a lot of manual time on the phone, making those calls. It's just going to take time. I'm hoping a week before school's starting, but I can't guarantee it. Basically, what I'm saying is we're doing everything we can to get them out as fast as possible, but I don't have a time frame. Same thing with Mr. Diodati at the elementary school. The teachers or the clerical staff is working on creating cohorts along with Mr. Diodati, putting those cohorts in, and as soon as he told the elementary school today, as soon as he has them done and they're ready to go out, he'll get them out. Very good question. Thank you for asking. Athletics and extracurricular clubs. So extracurricular clubs are not going to run for the immediate time being. So at least for the month of September, and I would suggest we're probably looking at September and October without extracurricular clubs. Athletics, they have a time frame right now. I think it's September 23rd or 21st, where they're going to make a decision on the fall season, and we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, you've seen what colleges are doing and things like that. I'll leave that up to the sports department to figure out what we're going to do. And as soon as we have an idea of what that is, we'll send it out over social media and then also over through email. So that's athletics and extracurricular activities. Orientation. So there's 3 orientations that we usually have at the beginning of the school year. There's a kindergarten orientation, which Mr. Diodati said today that they're working on a video of a teacher orientation, and then they're going to begin sending that video out. They right now do not have an option of coming in and seeing the teacher. There's just too many kids and not enough time slots to be able to do that prior to school. At least they'll get to see the teacher and look at that video. I know Mr. Benton is also working on a virtual option of 6th grade orientation. And he today said he's going to try and create some tours of the building, and he's going to get some information. At the elementary, it's more about meeting the teacher and comfort level with the teacher. At the high school or middle school level, more of it is about getting to know the building and things like that. So our 6th graders coming in haven't seen the building yet. So I know Mr. Diodati Mr. Benton wants to have some small group tours set up where he's just going to walk them around the building to show them where things are. He'll have a process for that. It'll be students only, not parents. They'll enter in one side of the building and exit out through the other side of the building. After the tour is over, he's thinking about 10 kids at a time. So he's got a couple sessions, at least one day, maybe 2, where there'll be signups for that. You can expect information by the end of this week on 6th grade orientation. And then Mr. Galgovich's high school orientation for 9th graders. He's going to do a virtual presentation like you would do a presentation in the auditorium, what that looks like. He does not plan on any tours of any existing students because they're already in the high school, middle school. So they know the building. The only ones that he's going to do virtual tours, or in-person tours is if a student hasn't been in the building before, new to the district, or if there's some reason the parent believes that the child needs a tour of the building before, you can contact Mr. Galgovich directly, and let's set that up the best he can. One of the things I didn't talk about, we're not using any lockers at the high school and middle school. All the kids are going to carry their possessions with them, a book bag. I am well aware that by November, we're looking at some rough weather. My hope is by November, we're either all back in and we're able to use lockers, or we're in a remote mode in which we won't be needing lockers. But to begin the year, we're going to keep lockers out of the mix, both gym lockers and lockers in the hallway. And the reason for that is every time a child touches it, it has to be sanitized. And I'm trying to keep the high touch frequency areas down to a minimum. because a student touches their locker, the locker has to be wiped down. They go inside the locker, the inside, the outside has to be locked down until the next day. So we're trying to keep that down to a minimum. I know the gym teachers and the administration are working on change whether or not kids are going to change for gym at the middle school and high school. Elementary, again, they're not going to use the locker room for a number of reasons. One is it has to be sanitized. Number two, the square footage of that room is too small to allow students side by side changing and then going out. They are going to be doing some outside activities, so they will make sure that some phys ed happens. They'll be outside, 12 feet apart. The elementary school will not change into any outside. Whatever they're wearing on, they'll go outside. Mr. Diodati explained that this afternoon, and if you want more information, you can contact him or give the school a call at that number. So that's the locker situation and how we're going to operate with that. I saw another question popped up.
This is a great question. How will the seniors have access to their guidance counselors with being distant learning? Chance of missing online instruction?
Not sure what the Chuck, I'm not sure what the chance of missing online instruction is, but let me answer the first part. If you want to give me another little clarification of what you mean about the second part, I'll do my best to answer that too. So the first part is they'll have access to them. Every office has a phone number, and all they have to do is email or phone their guidance counselor, and they can do a remote distance learning. Many of them are doing them already. So they'll have access to the guidance counselor just like all the students will. Their appointment will be virtual. And I don't know what chance of missing online instruction might be. I'll wait for a moment to see if Chuck puts up a clarification to that question. Okay. If you have a child that goes to BOCES, the first of 3 BOCES informational parent forum is beginning in about 2 minutes. If you're looking, I'm looking at my clock on my computer, and you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to go visit that. They are doing 3 sessions. 2 of them are tomorrow. One of them is tonight at 7. There's another one tomorrow at 3, and again at 7. And all of those links are on the OM BOCES website. That's what I'm being told. If there's no other further clarifications, I'm going to give another minute or 2, and then I'm going to sign off because that'll tell me that we have answered everybody's questions. So if you have any follow-up questions from one of the pieces that the parents have already written, or if you have any other clarifications you need, please put that in there. And if not, you're welcome to call that 751-9399 number to get some information. Again, we put this current meeting at night because we just thought that it was suggested because some of the parents really just didn't have access to getting on during the school day. So I'm hoping that this was useful and if it was helpful. So if they have to come in, you're right. Okay, now I get it, Chuck. Thank you. They're not going to have to come in and chance missing online instruction. Again, attendance is not necessarily based solely on being online during the time of that class. There's going to be times when the kid's going to be logged in, the direct instruction is going to be completed, more upper elementary, middle school, and high school. The instruction is going to be completed, the assignment's going to be given, and the child can stay logged in online, or they can fade out and do the work. There's a 12th period is still going to operate. 12th period is the instructional assistance period. It's academic assistance. 12th period allows the students to go to a classroom teacher or virtual into the classroom teacher for assistance. And they can call into the classroom, email the teacher, ask the teacher for a link to meet face-to-face or in a small group. I could picture teachers, knowing, sending out a 12th period link for this day, and any students that's looking for assistance can get some assistance. Look at the same thing for the counselors. That if a student wants to talk to the counselor, a parent wants to talk to the counselor, sending an email, Google Hangout link can be sent out. And then they can participate. We have found through our 504 and our IEP meetings throughout the summer, the number of people participating, parents' participation in these online meetings has increased multiple times over, because parents can set up times on a lunch period and then a lunchtime at work. If they're at home during a time when it's a little bit less chaotic, and they seem to be more willing to come in virtually, so that is an option also, just for parents to make connection. We are asking the students, this is one of the things I didn't say in the technology piece, but I want to make a point to say, is that we are asking that in order for a student to log in virtually or to do their work, they need to use their district account and also their district provided computer. So if you did not pick up your computer at the high school, middle school, you need to call the high school, middle school, set up a time to come get it, because your child is not going to be doing their homework or any of their work using their home device. And the reason for that is we have parameters set on what the kids' content that they can get to. So I'm required not only to have equal access for kids, so the best part, within the best I can, I need to provide equal access to technology. I also have to provide protection, so your child can't get at material that they shouldn't get after. That's not appropriate for them. So if they're using their home computer, they have the ability to access material that is not appropriate for them and share it. And that's going to be an issue, which was a violation of our code of conduct. So our acceptable use policy says that anyone who picked up a computer signed on and said, I understand my child's doing his remote instruction, distance learning instruction, asynchronous or synchronous. They're using their district account and they're using their district provided machine. If they're using a non-district machine, they're not following district policy and they're subject to violating code of conduct, especially if they do something that's inappropriate, I guess is the best thing. And that's part of the monitoring we're going to have to do as the school year goes on. The code of conduct is in effect for all student and staff when this school year begins. We have another question?
Yeah. Are the kids going to have mask breaks as well as moving around, not sitting constantly?
Yeah, there's going to be mask breaks. Absolutely, it's different between the elementary, middle, and high. So in the elementary, their mask breaks are when they're doing their work. They can take their mask off and rest and relax and do their work. And when they sit back, stand up, go to the bathroom, go wash their hands, they're going to have to put their mask on. Similar to how we're all operating in the restaurant world. And when that changes, hopefully the guidelines here change, but that's what it's going to have to be for elementary. As for moving around, absolutely, there will be some they are encouraging the use of playgrounds at the elementary, so we'll still have recess. It won't look the same. We'll have to encourage social distancing, limit the number of kids on the playground at a time, and stretch out. So that'll be for good days. It's going to get a little trickier when the cold weather is around. In order for a physical activity to happen, other than recess, it has to be 12 feet apart, and social distance 12 feet when a music, singing activity, band instrument activity, or a physical activity is going on. It has to be 12 feet of separation between kids. Band and chorus is going to look a lot different. Lessons are going to be more small group lessons, and lessons are going to be more of the flavor of what's going on. There won't be whole group band situations for a while unless they're done virtually. The kids at home will get virtual lessons just like the kids in school will get lessons. As for mask breaks at the high school and middle school, anytime they're seated and in their classroom, it's an opportunity for a mask break. When they stand up, the masks have to go on. So the teacher gets to direct the mask break. So at any time, if the child is sitting down, they can take the mask off. If the teacher is going to get up and start moving around, then the teacher's going to say, everybody's mask back on. Go help the person that they need, whatever assistance they need, or just check for understanding, moving around the room, checking for understanding. And then they sit back down. You're going to be doing both the classroom instruction and the online instruction in a similar fashion. I believe all, if not most, of our middle school and high school, probably upper elementary, are going to have the kids log on, whether they're at home or in school. And I think it's very difficult to be in both worlds, the virtual world and the in-person world. So to hand papers out and things is going to be different. I have asked them to really take a look at the supply list, especially at the middle school and high school, because I want to make sure that what the kid can carry is not an overabundance of material, because they're also going to be carrying their Chromebook. By reducing the material, there are going to be 2 items that are going to be added to the supply list. My hope is parents are going to understand if we reduce the amount of stuff, there are some things we're going to need you to take a look at. One is something you probably won't have to purchase, and if you do, it's not expensive at all, which is headphones. Most students have headphones, especially in the middle and high school. Many of them are wireless, so they can use their headphones that they already have that'll link to their Chromebook. And the thing that they probably don't have, you may have one at home, and that's great, is they're going to need a stylus. I know the teachers are going to add that as part of their supply list. When those supply lists are posted, they're being updated right now, so you're not going to be overburdened with a ton of material, plus the stylus. The stylus is for the touch screen, so they're able to write on the screen. It's very important for science and for math into high school, middle school. Some of those activities you can't recreate using keyboards. Thank you for that question. If there's any other questions, I'll give it a minute or so. And if not, I'll sign off. Thank everybody for joining this session. This is the first of the all district. In the end, we're going to have 10 of these sessions. I have 3 scheduled for middle school, 3 for the high school, 3 for the elementary school. The first 2 have already completed. High school, second one is tomorrow. And I have 3 of them, 2 this Thursday and 1 next week, Monday. All of those are scheduled. They're on the website. You should be able to find them pretty easily. And if I don't see any more questions, so at this time, I'm going to say thank you. I appreciate you joining. And again, if you have any questions after this, don't hesitate. Please call 751-9399. It's a direct line to Mrs. Pavan, the district clerk. She either can answer the question for you because she's heard this now 6 times. And if she can't answer the question for you, she'll reach her head in and ask me the question or send a call in, or she'll give you to the building principal or the secretary that may be able to answer the question. So no question is a silly question because we're all going through this together. So thank you very much for your patience, your time, and more importantly, I thank you in advance for all your flexibility as we move through this uncertain time. Have a great evening.